Alright, well this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again. We got episode 38 coming at you this week, and Armies of Mordor is back. He just couldn't get enough of the show. I welcome him back. I always love having somebody on the show to talk to, bounce ideas off of. Armies of Mordor was good enough to come back and deal with me. I mean, have fun with me again on this show. So tonight we're going to be talking about the 128 player undefeated deck list, some constructed updates, Cory's blog, HexTCGPro challenge series, the CZE lawsuit update, and we're going to talk about ball pits. Yes, it's going to be quite a show, so join us for the ride. So first and foremost, as we switch screens here, let's talk about some of these undefeated deck lists. So these are the deck lists that they have posted to us. They pulled them from a certain amount of they pulled them from some of the decks that are available that actually have won the 128 player tournaments from last weekend. So some of this stuff, some people I said that they didn't like these deck lists, or that they were suspect or whatever, or they weren't really that good. I would have to agree that some of them are very unfocused, but you know, anything can really happen. You know, it's a lot of that you know, any given Sunday type of syndrome, I think is kind of what was going on here. So
well, the other thing is that in a 4-round tournament, there's going to be several decks that go undefeated, and even just a little bit of luck can win you 4 rounds in Swiss. Like, generally, the larger Swiss tournaments, like for Magic or whatever, they end up going to 7 or 8 or 9 rounds or even 10 rounds. Then that's where these decks that probably wouldn't perform very well consistently over the entire course of the day get weeded out, and you get left with the cream of the crop. So,
right.
It is not impossible for a deck to go 4-0 that probably wouldn't in a larger event.
Right, exactly. I mean, sometimes it just depends on your matchups and your draws,
exactly.
And sometimes they just don't get the draws. So typically, like, when we're coming down, like, you have to take the numbers, and until it gets down to like the number 1 spot or the the top 8 spots, that's what will really tell you what the good decks are. You know, 4 rounds, that's only half of the tournament. I mean, that would be like playing an 8-man tournament and being like, I won 2 games, so that means my deck is really good. You know, I mean, that's pretty much almost the same thing. But there are some interesting ideas. In fact, we're going to pull one of these decks and do it for the deck doctor tonight. I believe it's going to be, let's see if I can, I think I might have already passed it. We're going to be doing this one by a player named Zoc or Zoke. It's basically an Arcane Shield type of deck where he's going to play Boulder Brute and Arcane Shield and then buff him with a couple of different things. He's got some really interesting choices in here, and some other choices I felt were a little bit clunky, so we'll be talking about that at the end of the program. Moving on to some of the news this week, we've got the constructed tournaments are going to be, they're going to be like giving us a little bit more rewards on these tournaments, so you know, that's just good for everybody. What do you think about that, Armies? I mean, you know, it's pretty much it's a win-win, right? I mean, there's really nothing,
well,
the
only downside to this is that if somebody has 8 accounts and they all queue into it, they can get packs on the cheap.
Maybe. I mean, so I mean, if you do the math, so 300 plat for 8 accounts, so that's $3 times 8 would be 24. So on this particular one, the competitive constructed, so you're spending it was $24 for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 packs. 13 times 2 is $26. So yeah, that does work out that way. Plus you get a lot of gold. Mostly you're just getting gold.
Gold, and you still get a chance at primals plus the discount.
Right. So I mean, I suppose, yeah, the payouts are actually a little bit better if you, but you know, that's a lot of work getting 8 accounts together. Plus, right now, I mean, who has eight beta accounts? You know.
I only have 2, and that's because I backed twice.
Right, exactly. And I've got one for my wife, which is still not working, and then my own personal one. Moving on to the Cory Jones update with his blog, and he starts out by saying, like, he always like feels like the community may be reading these and being like, I don't care about what this guy has to say, show me some cards and stuff. So make sure you're getting out there and supporting him. He has some really interesting things to say, even if it is that you don't read the opening remarks and other stuff, and you just want to skip down to where the cards are. You know, be appreciative of the time he's taking out. I mean, this is the president of a company. He doesn't really have to do this. I mean, he has other people that could be doing this sort of thing. So I'm really appreciative of this. Armies, I mean, what did you think about that when you read that in here? You said you read the full article, right?
Yeah, I read the whole thing. It's nice hearing about like him having conversations with people about evangelizing people to Hex, and yeah, he makes some cute comments and interesting things. I mean, it only takes a few minutes to read through the full post, so anyone who likes to support the company should at least, you know, listen to what he has to say. I mean, if you didn't read through the full text, you wouldn't hear him praising Set 2 and how Set 2 is amazing, and there's so many different decks that are playable and things like that.
Yeah, I think one of the funniest things that stood out to me about this post was when he's talking about being interviewed by some kid that was probably 16, I guess, or very young editor.
That wasn't a gamer. Yeah.
He's not a gamer. He goes, he goes, all right, you know, basically, wow me, tell me about this game. You know, he's like all excited about it, and he's like, do you play MMOs? No. Well, if you don't play TCGs? Do you play TCGs? No. He's like, not really.
What games do you play?
He says, what games do you play? I'm not really much of a gamer. It's kind of like, at that point, I don't know that I could carry on a conversation at that point. But says he was sounds like he was pretty cordial to him. Talked to him about him. He says, I like that guy's moxie. So, I mean, you know, it's kind of difficult to get the full impression of what was going on with that whole situation, but I'm sure it was very humorous. So that kind of brings us to the cards that he released. So first up we've got Fury the Mountain God, who's an 8 cost, which seems really high at first glance. Double blood threshold. He's a stockable major and minor, so this is the first card that we've seen besides, like, I think there's Cockatrice, but that wasn't an official release, that has 2 sockets. And then whenever a troop you control deals damage, this troop gets permanent -1. So the obvious thing is that that Cory points out here is Fang of the Mountain God, which deals damage to you every turn. So if you swing with it and it deals damage to you, that's 2 instances of damage, which means that this guy would then cost 6, and then the next time it would cost 4. So that, you know,
you could definitely get a free 4/4 beat stick pretty easy in an orc deck.
Right, and so that makes the blood ruby orcs like more of a thing now. I know that they've been pushing that in that direction for sure. So anything else to add on this? I mean, what would you gem it with?
If I was playing the aggressive orc deck, the ruby blood, it would probably be speed and the direct damage to your opponent equal to his attack gem. It just seems that after your opponent board wipes you, you could put out a close to a 0-cost 4/4 that deals 4 damage to your opponent and swings in for 4 damage in the same turn. It could quite easily be the great finisher that this deck needs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I still am on board with putting the what is it called, the rage gem on there, even though you're saying I'm wasting it because it's a minor gem and a major slot plus the speed one. But there's probably a lot of other things you could be doing with this as well. I don't know that I would play this as the other deck, though, that is like a control deck or anything.
If you're playing like Blood Wild, you could give it Spellshield, and whenever it enters play, or whenever it deals damage, you get a Rhino, or whenever it enters play, you could give +4/+4 to something else. It's not epic beard time.
Yeah, you do have a pretty epic beard. I just like to we've had that pointed out quite a few times, and I would have to agree. I'm very jealous of your beard. So moving on, we've got Scheme. It says search your deck for an action, create 4 of that action, then shuffle it into your deck. I actually got a shout out from the Reddit forums, and I forget who it was that said it, but they said, oh yeah, you should send this to Aaron Squire type of thing. You know, he'd go crazy with this type of stuff. So we were talking about this before the show. Obviously, escalation cards would be a good target. You actually get to pick the card out. It does have to be a basic action, right? So it has to be
any action.
Oh, any action. So it could be a quick action card. So you could actually add more counter magic to your deck if you wanted to.
You could add more schemes to your deck as well.
You could add more schemes, but it's one of those pay now and then hopefully it pays off later type of cards. I mean, I like the card. I think I like it a lot better than Replicator's Gambit, and we've already seen that Replicator's Gambit is actually a deck.
Yeah, I definitely see the take infinite turns in a row deck coming into fruition in set 2, which scares me, but
I mean, if
what are you going to do?
So I think the thing that you pointed out was Mastery of Time, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty crazy to me. I mean, take tons and tons of turns, and it doesn't matter if we're pulling them out of the deck, you know, putting them into Oblivion, or what is it, into the Void Zone. It doesn't really matter that they aren't going to our graveyard, because we're just going to make more with Scheme. We're just going to scheme some more.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal scenario is get as many Cerebral Fulminations in play as you can to draw you a bunch of extra cards, since Scheme doesn't give you any initial card advantage or anything to begin with.
Right.
You scheme your Mastery of Times, and while you're playing Mastery of Times, you're drawing 2 or 3 cards a turn from your Cerebral Fulminations. You can scheme another scheme, which you can use to scheme more Mastery of Times, and you can just eventually get to the point where your deck is nothing but schemes and Mastery of Times, and you just take turn after turn after turn after turn, and your win con is like Rage Fire or something.
So the thing that really interests me, that I actually just thought about, was the fact that Cryptozoic, you know, the parent company, or I guess the sister company now, because we now have Hex LLC, but they do deck building, and a lot of their stuff, their cards are like, it's like you're building your deck while you're playing the game. So that's what Scheme and with what's it called, the one I was just talking about, both of those cards, like both this card and the other card, they do like it's almost like you're building your deck while you're playing the game. It's just pretty interesting to me. What is it? I'm totally playing Replicator's Gambit. Yeah, it's like you're building your deck. I mean, that's kind of an interesting concept, something you really don't see too much with other games, you know, that aren't deck building games to begin with. So moving on, we've got Stormcloud. This is a 2 and 1 Sapphire Threshold. It's an 0/2, so it's kind of a defender, but I guess you could get offensive with it if you buffed it in some
somehow
way.
Buffed it,
yeah. It has flight, so it does block decently well. I mean, at least in, you know, above ground and on the ground. It says when you gain a charge, add a storm counter to this. So now we're seeing charges being used on cards, which is something I had thought about before when I had talked to the devs last Gen Con. And then for a basic, it says basic, remove all the storm counters, sacrifice it, and then for each storm counter, remove them. That way you get a random Stormling to put into play, and there's 3 of these. So right off the bat, what do you think about this guy before we look at the Stormlings, Armies?
Well, the fact that it's basic is what kills me the most. You can't sacrifice it in response. You can't block with it and sacrifice it. I think it'll be a decent troop in limited, but I don't see a deck being able to play it well and constructed. It just doesn't seem like it does enough for what it is, for how much you have to put into it.
Yeah, I agree. It would be nice to be able to sack it in response, but we can't have everything in quick action, right? I mean, they kind of have.
Well, I mean, it is a rare. I mean, they could have made it a quick action to remove all the storm counters and sacrifice it.
This might be a fun one in PvE too, with the, you know, depending on what kind of equipment we get with it. So
yeah, if they add other cards, they can add multiple charges in a turn. Like Charge Bot with equipment might give us multiple charges or something. That could be pretty fun with this card.
So with this one of the random ones we can get is this Biddy Bolt, which is 2 and 1 Sapphire Threshold, so 1/1 flyer. It says sacrifice it and deal 2 damage to target exhausted troop. So pretty decent. It is removal. It's going to be, you know, I think that this guy's actually going to be a high draft pick. I mean, it's like an auto pick if you're drafting.
Yeah, Stormcloud is definitely going to be good and limited because it is a must remove threat. Because the longer the game goes, every time you play a resource, you gain a charge, so you'll gain the ability to get several of these ridiculous.
They're all basically 1/1 flyers. We've got Splashy, who's 2 and 1 Sapphire, 1/1. Sacrifice this and draw a card. I mean, the 2 is somewhat important if they get bounced to your hand, but typically they're just going to get put into play anyways.
Well, if they try to bounce it, all of them could be sacked in response if you really need to.
That's true.
Splashy, I'd probably just sack it to draw a card rather than replay it.
Yeah.
Bitty Bolt, it kind of is iffy because they have to have an exhausted troop.
Yeah, it's very situational. I mean, it doesn't cost anything, so that's good at least. Then you got Thunder Puff, which is sacrifice this and exhaust target troops. So I guess you could Thunder Puff something and then Bitty Bolt it. If you really needed to.
Yeah.
It feels like a 2-for-1, but it's not really because you got it all off of Storm Cloud. So I think what's going to be the most positive thing about this is just getting a bunch of 1/1 flyers, and then maybe if you could buff them somehow, that would be pretty exciting.
Air superiority with this card would be pretty nuts.
Yeah, air superiority. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Moving on. Guer, if you know him from the forums, he's all over the forums posting like a madman. He reached a milestone of 5,000 posts. 5,000 posts.
The triumvirate rank.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he is actually going to get to play against Ben, who is one of the lead developers in Set 1 and I believe in Set 2 and 3. I mean, I don't know if there are any other set developers right now that are going to be leading any of the other sets, but he'll be playing against Ben Stoll. And if he wins, he's going to they're going to reveal another card from Set 2. So let's hope that he wins. Let's all cross our fingers. I don't know if they'll be streaming or not.
A legendary card.
Right, a legendary card. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, anything else to add to that?
I hope he wins because I want to see more cards.
Oh, yeah. And then Cory talks about how he was, the Toastmaster General for basically helping his wife out when she was pregnant, getting her toast whenever she needed it. Like, he's a toast guy. And so they made this card, and somebody posted, let's see, I actually wrote this down, on my Twitter, Jeremy Licardi. So shout out to that guy, because he's like, this should be a PvE champion, and I completely agree with him. We should have Toastmaster General as a PvE champion, as a, not a PvE champion, but a mercenary. Yeah, I think so. So anything else on that one, Armies?
Well, apparently it's already in one of their other games in Food Fight, so I don't know if there'd be any issues using some of their other assets from other games. Yeah.
So moving on, we've got, let's see, I got to pull it up now, and it is right here. So if you didn't know, Cryptozoic has been, sued by Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro Incorporated, or Hasbro. I think they're both LLCs, and then they basically lumped both Hex LLC and Cryptozoic together. But this is Cryptozoic's response. It's posted on the Reddit forums. I don't know if it's posted anywhere else. So if you go to the Reddit forums, it reads with the three basically the 3 different allegations. This person sums it up pretty well, but basically, Wizards of the Coast patent claims are invalid. They're basically saying this whole thing is invalid because you guys weren't specific enough. Like, that sums up most of this. But first of all, the patent claims are invalid because the patent expired and their permanent injunction. And again, this is their words, not specifically mine. The copyright claims are invalid because Wizards of the Coast doesn't give examples, specific mechanics that infringed on Magic the Gathering. And then the trade and dress, nobody was confused by, so there's really no infraction there. And then Wizards of the Coast also doesn't say why it should be tried in Washington, D.C., where their headquarters is, rather than a different state. I don't know how pertinent that is. But then there's a bunch of different things down here that talk about that. Of course, my son Zachary is going crazy. He's just talking downstairs. He's just making a little noise. So I'm going to let Armies talk about what he feels about this while I turn off my mic.
I think this is exactly what was going to happen with that very broad statement. I mean, I don't know too much about law, other than what I've learned in some law classes, but I'm not a lawyer. But it definitely seemed that Wizards was overreaching with their first initial lawsuit. it was just way too broad. They were using way too much hearsay evidence to back their theory that this game was literally Magic, just reskinned and revamped or whatever. So
yeah, exactly.
I think it's turning out exactly as it should.
So yeah, I mean, exactly. I don't see why there can't be a world where both of these things can't exist. But I do think that it's important that Wizards protects that they do their due diligence and try to protect their stuff. And I think that hopefully we'll just come out on top, and there will be some sort of agreement that will be reached, and everyone will be happy. We'll be able to play our game, and we'll still be able to play. Of course, we'll be able to play Magic because they're not going away. But I just hope that as much as possible, the least amount of damage gets done in this instance. So moving on to the next thing. So in case you guys hadn't heard, there was this convention that happened last weekend, and it was called DASHCON, and I just found out about this like this morning. So this was for all these people that do Tumblr type stuff. It was them to go out and be with each other and do talk about their different Tumblr, I guess, things that they like about Tumblr and their different stuff. But the con didn't go so well. Like on the first night, they had to ask everyone for like $17,000 to keep it running because it didn't read some fine print in their agreement, and that leads us to this. Basically, there was this a group called Night Vale, and I guess they do some sort of like podcast type thing. So they were going to do it live at the con, and people prepaid to go to it. Well, they canceled because the people at the con weren't able to pay them again because they had just made some mistakes and some different things went on. And instead, they get to have an hour in the ball pit. And there's all these memes. This thing just exploded. It's hilarious. And all I'm saying is, if there's no ball pit at Gen Con this year, I'm going to be very disappointed. So, anything to talk about with this, Armies of Mordor?
No, not too much. I only heard about it from you, so
yeah. I just thought it was kind of interesting in passing. So, I thought I might bring it up. You guys can go look it up on your own time. But moving on to what everyone's excited for. It was actually really difficult for me to find people that wanted to be on the show tonight because everybody's really busy tuning those decks, getting ready for tomorrow's Challenge Series tournament. This will be the this will be the fourth Challenge Series tournament. I believe there's one more after this. And if you do win this, you're going to get a King Tier. I believe John still has one of those to give away. If you guys haven't heard the recent 2 Turns Ahead podcast, I suggest that you go and listen to that, especially if you're playing in tomorrow's tournament, because they do go over the meta game of what they feel is going to be in the top 8. So those are going to be the decks either to play or the decks to beat, so you better be ready for them. Additionally, there's no sideboarding still because we don't have best of 3 matches in casual. Now, we could have done a 128 tournament and just had everybody queue into the same 128, but that would have been a little bit too clunky, and then people would have had to pay tournament fees. So I think that's why John decided not to go with that. So Armies, what do you think about the tournament series? I mean, you're on the bubble, right? Like you're trying to
I'm trying to get like top 8, or maybe I can get away with a top 16 and maybe a top 16 in the next one or something. But yeah, I don't have that many points. These tournaments have not been kind to me because I am an avid user of the sideboard when it comes to Constructed.
Right.
So the fact that I have to build my deck to beat everything in the meta and not just have sideboard cards that I can take out the worst cards in my deck in certain matchups certainly hurts me. But I feel the deck that I'm going to play has pretty good game against everything, and it's just going to come down to who plays better or who gets the better cards. So I'm not too worried about this event. I'm pretty comfortable with the deck I've chosen. So
right, yeah, you end up like pre-siding things like as a one-of, right? I mean, sometimes like for instance, if you're playing Wild, you might throw in like a 1 or a 2 of with what's it called?
Nature Reigns.
Nature Reigns. Yeah, you might throw in like a 1 or a 2 of with that and pre-side it because you.
Same with Turbulence.
Yeah, Turbulence. You might throw 1 of Turbulence in there, just because you know that those decks are out there and they deal with you really well. Personally, my prediction for tomorrow is that there's going to be 3 to 5 Blood Diamond decks in the top 8, but there's probably going to be 2 Tempo decks. And I hope that a combo dex makes it in there. In fact, I hope my combo dex makes it in there. But, you know, so everyone knows, I will be running the combo deck tomorrow. I'm going to be running the Sapphire Replicator's Gambit with Wild. The Wild Sapphire, the Wild Gambit, I guess I'm going to call it. The Wild Gambit. It doesn't run what Havoc does exactly. I'm not in Ruby because I feel like that's a little bit more... I don't have as many mulligans, but... You know, his deck is really strong too, so I'm not sure which one is actually that much better. There's also a blood variant as well out there. But yeah, we're definitely going to see, I would say, that, and we're definitely going to see maybe 2 or 3 Gore Feast decks in the top 8. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow, Armies? What would be your prediction?
Since we're actually playing, you know, one of these events with all of with only your collection and not with every card, I don't think there's going to be nearly as many Blood Diamond decks as there have been in the past because of the just sheer cost of the deck.
True.
So I'm going to say that there's probably going to be a lot more Gore Feast decks because it's much more budget.
You better be ready for Gore Feast, that's for sure.
Yeah,
because you're going to play against it once in 8 rounds at least, probably 3 times.
At least, I would definitely think 2 or 3 games you're going to be playing against some sort of aggro deck, and most of the aggro decks right now have Gore Feast in them.
Yeah, they're going to.
So I would say at least 3 games against Gore Feast, if not more, because it's cheap, it's effective, and it does do work against Blood Diamond when you're on the play, especially.
So, I have to ask you, one of the top 8 decks, or not top 8, one of the 4-0 decks was your deck, where it
2
was...
2 of them, actually.
2 of them, yeah, but one of them in particular interests me because it's the one that kicked the crap out of me, which was the Inspire one. So, do you think that we'll see an Inspire deck tomorrow? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see one in the top 8.
Not as heavily Inspire-based as that deck was, but right. I wouldn't put it past someone to be playing Ruby Pyromancers, Lord Alex, Falconers, and maybe even Legionnaire Gawain in a more of a Ruby-ish version, not 3-color. I wouldn't expect 3-color. I mean, someone might, but I wouldn't expect it to do very well. I couldn't even believe that I 4-0'd with that deck. So.
Well, you are running some of the power cards. I mean, you're running the Soul Marble in here. Secret Lab seems like a pretty good call, like as a one-of. You've got the Falconeer, which is a very strong card. I mean, it's one of these cards. It feels very toolboxy.
Certainly, the deck had lots of one-ofs and good cards that made it so that it, like the thing with the deck is I played aggro round 1, I Legionnaire Gawain them, they died.
Yeah.
I played aggro round 2, I Legionnaire Gawain, they died. I played you game 3, I Legionnaire Gawain you died.
Yeah, exactly.
Game 4 was the first control match of that tournament. And I would say I got lucky. I think he mulliganed to 4 on the first game or something.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Like I said, I thought I got pretty lucky. I didn't have to play much control against much control with that deck. I just couldn't believe you Gawained me
so many times, but you're running 3 in here. I couldn't believe you were getting your threshold met. That was the other thing that was crazy. Like, I say it on the game, so...
yeah,
but
well,
I would challenge
they're all
somebody...
simple threshold cards, so...
I would challenge somebody to run this deck or something close to it tomorrow. I don't think anyone's going to, but I mean, this deck, I don't know. I don't know how it beat me, but it just did. Oh, it also runs Gore Feast, so there you go. It just runs a bunch of random things. It's just, you just don't know what to expect from it. So.
Yeah, troops plus Gore Feast is all you need to win.
Yeah. The Falconeer was a big problem for me too. It runs Reginald, like that was an interesting choice too. Like that was another one where.
That's because there's no real card draw in the deck because I didn't have Mirror Knights because this was in my second account, which doesn't have nearly as many cards as my first account. So I have like 7 Reginalds between my 2 accounts. So it's like, well, it's a human.
It's a 3/3. It's a solid.
It's a 3/3, and it draws me 3 cards, which helps fuel the deck. Sure, it draws my opponent 3 cards too, but it also gives them that panic feeling where any turn they could lose the game.
So let's go ahead. That will segue us nicely to Zock's Spellshield deck that he had. This is a 4-0 deck, apparently. You know, we're thinking he got kind of lucky, but he's running some interesting stuff in here. So the main thing is he's running the Boulder Brute with the Spellshield. And he's also running Replicator's Gambit in here for some reason. Some of the other choices are okay. Like, I guess the Sapphire Aura you can throw on the Boulder Brute to give him flying. Tyrannosaurus Hex, okay, I guess. There's probably better choices. He's doing a playset of Nature Rains, which I guess is just a nod, like we were talking about before, to the fact that what's it called? Soul Marvel is just so prevalent. But he's doing other things like Lord Ben is a one of in here, and there's like how many humans? Like 1,
5,
2, 3, 4.
4 yeah,
humans.
Not very good.
So
three
chances
other
of him hitting
besides Ben, so it's pretty useless.
Yeah, chances of him hitting with this Lord Ben are pretty low. So we're gonna doctor this. His curve is kind of atrocious too. So and he's also at 62 cards in the deck, and he has no Shards of Fate in here either. So I mean, I've had people, plenty of people have disagreed with me about the 4 Shards of Fate being obligatory, but I mean, you would at least run 2, I would think. I mean, you can't really argue with that.
I would run 4 in this deck.
I would.
I mean, I don't know what champion power he was using, but for all I can see, there's no charge power that you must have on whatever turn you need to have it, where you would need to not play Shards of Fate. Unlike where the Gorfeast decks, where you really want to hit your charges each turn so that you can have the turn 4 Pokus charge power in Gorfeast. This deck, if you have to wait 1 extra turn to gain 5 life, or 1 extra turn to give something flying, it's probably not going to be the end of the world.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, because we're doing the Spellshield, we'll probably go with Dandelion Sprite in here. I mean, what are your feelings on that?
I don't like Dandelion Sprite in a 2-color deck very much.
That's true. I mean, I could see that.
The 3 threshold for a 1/2 flyer with Spellshield is kind of meh.
Yeah, it's kind of meh. But I mean, if we run a play set of what's his name,
Howling Brave.
Howling Brave. I mean, that should help. And then maybe if we run like some Chlorophyllia, I'm not sure that we need Chlorophyllia though in here.
I still think it's just better in the mono wild version where you can play Wild Root Dancer and things like that. I think this deck is trying. No.
He needs to. That's a must, though. You got to agree with me there. That's a must. Wild Root Dancer.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. Almost every card in this deck is either a common or an uncommon. Besides, there's a deck rare, the Lord Ben,
right,
and everything else is an uncommon or a common.
I did actually see somebody that was playing Wild that was just like smash him in the face kind of Wild, where it was like 4 Wild Aura.
Ogres.
It was 4 Wild Growth and 3 Wild Aura, and then it was just a bunch of like, yeah, the Ogres and stuff. I'm not sure if we're going to want this Chlorophyllia, so we're just going to throw 1 up there. Glimmerglen Witch is really more of a reserves card, but I mean, I guess I could kind of see it, maybe. I don't know. It has a nice body, I guess. But you know, gaining 3 health it's all right. I mean, it's no Kitchen Finks or anything.
Oh man, that card is so good. No.
I know. Well, it's a modern defining card for you Magic players out there. You probably know what I'm talking about. So the choice here is between Nelebrin, Skirmisher, and Boulder Brute, and you know, we're thinking about it again. Or Battle Beetle. Obviously, Battle Beetle and Nelebrin Skirmisher are rare cards, so this person may not have access to those. And of course, most of the viewers, you know, to get access to these guys, I mean, it can't be that expensive because there's a lot of people that really are not playing Wild right now. So on the market, I would expect a lot of these Wild cards to be cheaper than.
Yeah, I think
most.
Battle Beetle's under $2. Skirmisher's only an uncommon, so that's probably 11
okay.
Plat. So
let's go with, I think we should go with Skirmisher then. I mean, we'll throw him in there over the other guy. I mean, this is kind of the deck we've built before, though. So that's the thing.
I've had a Blood Wild deck that was the Skirmisher based, and it did really well in one of the streamer tournaments way back before the HexTCGPro Challenge Series, where it just buff Spellshield Skirmisher with Blood Aura, Wild Aura, and if it ever got Extinction, you just call the Graven back and you just replay it. It had some play to it, but this is a bit more of a tempo-y draw kind of version,
right,
I guess.
We're going to bounce our guys and do stuff with them. Crash the Beast is always good. If you have these, I mean, you could play them in this deck, although you're playing more of a tempo deck, so you're probably not going to want to bounce a lot of your guys, so I don't know. It goes kind of back and forth on that one. We could still run Arcane Shield. I don't know if there's a reason to run Battle Beetle if we're not going to throw that gem on it, though. We're probably going to end up pulling them.
Well, Battle Beetle wasn't in the original list.
Not Battle Beetle, Boulder Brute.
Yeah. I mean, Boulder Brute, the only other reason you'd play it is it's another the 4/4 flyer for 5.
Okay, yeah.
There's one in Sapphire.
We probably want some Wild Aura in here and Wild Growth. I'm not sure how many we'd run, though. And another thing we could run in here is maybe... I mean, the thing is, if we run Feral Ogre, we might want to be more wild, though. So I don't know if we want to run Feral Ogre.
I don't know if we really need to play Feral Ogre in the strategy that this deck is trying to play. It seems like this deck, if we're trying to win with a Spellshield card, we're trying to put on enough pressure with that Spellshield card to force them to Extinction, or there's not a lot of removal that can deal with a Spellshield card. So if you can just get your guy bigger than their guys or force them to Extinction depending on the matchup, that's probably enough in itself that you don't really need to have multiple aggressively costed troops.
So I think just having the one Spell Shield, the one extra Spell Shield is good enough. So we're definitely pulling the Replicator's Gambit because there's really... Replicator's Gambit is a different deck. Like that's a deck that runs like an engine.
You could actually play in this deck if you're still playing the 4 Senseis, and if you up the Buccaneers to 4, those targets are good enough that...
Well, the Buccaneers, yeah, well, that's
fine.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, really, when you think about Replicator's Gambit, it's a cantrip that loses you a chump blocker. But if you ever redraw it, it's amazing.
It can be, yeah. I don't know. I'd rather just get rid of it. I think it just dilutes the deck too much. So I think we're gonna say goodbye to you, Replicator's Gambit. I mean, it could be you could be in a situation where you're like, man, I really feel like I need to draw an answer here, and so I'm gonna Gambit away something. I want to take our shards down to 10 and 10 right now, just for now. And then we'll get rid of all these Boulder Brutes, because there's really nothing else to like gem them with, other than that Spell Shield, and that Spell Shield gem's going in our other guy. I mean, we could... So the other thing we could give them is Mischief, right? Because then we could play them as a quick action. Could do that. That could be kind of neat. Quick action Boulder Brute. What do you think about that? Are you still there? Yeah, I'm still here. It's playable as a quick action. It certainly is, but I think it's more of a sideboard card because as a 4/4 for 5, it's still kind of expensive for what it does. I think we'll just pull them. I think it's just one of those things where we just can't justify it. I don't know that we're going to need this Chlorophyllia in here even, really. We're definitely pulling the Transaurus Hex. Great draft card, by the way, but, you know, it's just not going to do what we need it to do for 6. We could probably find something better.
I'm much more of a fan of the Squirrel Titan, because at least it does something when it comes into play than the Hex.
We can always bounce Squirrel Titan with Buccaneer. Oh, you know what else we probably need in here is we need the other bounce card.
Time Ripple?
Time Ripple, yeah. It's kind of a big deal. We could definitely run like 2 Time Ripple in here. No problems. No questions asked, really. Actually, I'll just type it in on top because that'll be faster. Time Ripple. Time Ripple. So Honeycap is another one of those like redheaded stepchilds. I feel like on the set that just doesn't see a lot of play, and in this deck he really doesn't fit very well because we're dual shard again.
Yeah, it's really good in draft. It's a great draft card. Even mono wild, it's a pretty powerful threat. Even if you're only splashing Sapphire with like a few shards just to play like Time Ripples and Buccaneers, or even like Devoted Emissary, you can, you know, return it to your hand, replay it, and double its strength. Like, it has the potency to be good, but it doesn't have Crush, it doesn't have Evasion, and it just doesn't fit in this 2-color deck.
Yeah. If I could say one thing that I saw the most out of all the deck lists that were in the 4-0 undefeated category, I'd say I saw a ton of Buccaneer. Buccaneer is probably the MVP common of this set. I would venture to say. I don't know.
Man of War with an upside. Can't say no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there is a better common than Buccaneer in this set. Really, quite honestly, I mean, maybe Countermagic for me, or like Burn or something, but
Murder.
I mean, he's just really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Murder's good too, but I mean, it's a body that has removal, which could actually remove something for quite some time.
My favorite interaction with Buccaneer has to be with the monkey, especially limited, because if your opponent's not playing Sapphire and you turn their card into a monkey and then bounce it to their hand, they will never be able to replay it.
So removing Lord Ben is a pretty easy, obvious choice. The Mentalist doesn't. How many things does the Mentalist actually buff now that
I would rather play Mirror Knight over Mentalists.
Well,
Mentalist is so slow.
Yeah. Yeah, Mirror Knight's definitely better. Incantation of Ascendance doesn't really fit with this deck because this isn't really like a stall deck or anything that's going to be sweeping stuff out. It will happen. It's the one incantation that will happen no matter what, but this is another one where you kind of need more than one because it changes all the incantations in your deck. So this is another one that even though it's rare and you want to show off your cool rare card, it's not going to probably do a whole lot for you. So we can pull that pretty easily. I think we can keep Manti Elder Druid though, at least a 1 of, maybe a 2 of.
I think it's not a terrible card. It's better than Boulder Brute if Boulder Brute was just like, vanilla, because at least this has the potential to either unbuff something or rebuff something that your opponent has either, mesmerized, conflicted, or even reduced the attack of.
You can even take Elder Druid and hit that Soul Marble with it and force your opponent to sink all those resources into it, right?
Nope, doesn't work. Only hits troops.
Oh, target troop. Yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah. Well,
if they made a card like
now he's a 1 of.
Yeah, if they made that card that made it so that you could target things with Spellshield until end of turn, then you could theoretically revert a Cavalry back. But currently, there isn't a card that does that. So
right. Survival of the Fittest probably doesn't need to go in here at all. We just don't have big enough stuff to fight now. It was decent with Boulder Brutes, but now that we've gotten rid of Boulder Brute, it really just doesn't fit with the deck or the theme.
I think Survival is surprisingly effective. It's probably one of the better removal spells that doesn't see a lot of play.
But a lot of the time in this deck, you're gonna have 2 for 1-ing or 3 for 1-ing some troop. I mean that's horrible. Like you didn't plan well when that happens. Peak is probably not the best for this deck. We aren't really searching for 1-ofs or anything, so I can see us pulling that. It does do a decent job of fixing, but we've got Chlorophyllia for that. Which actually empties out the deck and deck thins for us, which is nice. I don't know that we even need Chlorophyllia, though. I don't think we do.
I would probably rather play Chlorophyllia than Howling Brave, because that way you don't lose as much to Sorrow or Heatwave or Extinction.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's a good choice there, because we're not really super rampy anyway, so we really don't need the Howling Braves.
Plus, if you do end up playing Wild Root Dancer in the deck, Chlorophyllia actually pumps your Root Dancer, so
exactly.
It has some synergy that Howling Brave doesn't.
So our curve is starting to shape up pretty good here. We need to get our 3 drops are like the ones we need to hit the most. We're definitely not getting rid of Skirmishers or Root Dancers though. Sensei, I'm not sure if we even really need a lot of Sensei in here, because he's really good. He cantrips, but we're trying to get solid bodies we can buff with or tempo with that are not targetable. So I don't know that Sensei really fits with this deck. What are your feelings on Sensei in this deck right now?
I think Sensei is a nod to the aggressive decks in the format. He trades really well with a lot of the X1s. He could chump a Blaze Elemental if he has to, and he replaces himself, which is always a powerful effect. I just don't see how Sensei's ever like a bad card in these kinds of decks.
Yeah, he deck thins for you. He basically virtually makes your deck into like a 56 card deck, in a virtual way. In some ways.
In the worst case, he's a body you can pump with Wild Root Dancer.
Right. I got rid of Oakenge for the same reason that I got rid of a Peak. So I'm going to have to refresh my page, apparently. It's a little bit frozen right now.
And I would probably cut at least 2 Nature Rains. 4 main deck seems just too many.
Yeah, I took it down to 1. I mean, you could play 1 or 2 main deck, and I would feel comfortable with that. You know, I have heard other people say they would play 3. I feel like that's a bit high for me. I feel very uncomfortable with that.
There are just decks that don't have any targets at all. I wouldn't really be comfortable with more than 1 or 2 in the main, at least.
So our 3 drops are... Yeah, okay, Mesmerize. We can get rid of Mesmerize. I'm still looking for things I can dump here. The Arcane Shield, I don't know if we really even want that in here. I mean, you could throw it. You can respond with it, so it's a 1-for-1, like responsive-wise, or well, it's a 2-for-1, right? Yeah, you get to save your guy, and you get to get rid of their removal.
There isn't really a target in the deck that I would.
Yeah, like, you really
feel obligated to cast it on. Maybe Wild Dancer, but
Skirmisher already has Spellshield.
It's pretty clunky because it is double threshold. And so is a lot of our wild stuff. So I'd probably lean towards cutting it.
Time Rebel will give you the same effect, and it has more utility.
Yeah.
Because our 2-point range wasn't what was hurting us anyway. So I don't know. Do we want to run 24 shards? We might be okay with 24 shards in this deck. We don't really have a lot of 1-drops now. We might actually put 1 Howling Brave back in because we have so many 3-drops. So that way we can play a 3-drop on turn 2 with the Howling Brave. We have a chance to do that. We haven't even picked a champion out right now, so we should probably do that as well.
I would probably just go Feather Drifting Downriver to be able to give the Skirmisher evasion.
Yeah, I think so too. I really do, because that's the whole theme of the deck. We're trying to play spell shielded troops. So Feather Drifting Downriver, and then we're going to get that Howling Brave back. So just 1 for right now, and that's going to help us out. We have more drops now. We're still running 24 shards, which might be a little bit high. I think we can take it down to 23 pretty safely, especially with the Chlorophyllia. I mean, the Chlorophyllia is going to help us get those shards into play. I mean, right now we've got 18 Sapphire. Yeah, Sapphire is going to be a little bit harder to get to for us too. So
I would probably move a couple counter magics to the sideboard, as it's a little bit clunky for the deck since we're mainly wild. And I'd probably go for maybe a 1 of Jadiim, just to have another pretty powerful threat.
That's in the main deck. I didn't notice that was actually in the main deck. Wow. There we go. Paying attention. This is why I have guests on, people, to cover me. Using the friends. Yeah, I think the counter magic's pretty clunky in this deck, so we'll probably just two main deck, 2 sideboard, two reserves, and then Jadiim.
I mean, just enough to make it so they have to be like, do I need to play around counter magic when you're holding up 3 resources, but not enough that your hand is like, well, I've got 4 counter magics, but only 1 Sapphire. Screw me, you know.
Yeah. And Gralk. I mean, we're basically building a lot of what we've seen before with tempo type, wild tempo type of decks. Menacing Gralk's another one that can blow your opponent out. I'm not sure how many of these we're going to play in the deck because it is kind of clunky to play all these triple threshold things.
I think I would rather play Mastery of Time than Gralk, probably,
really?
Because the idea of this deck is that your Skirmisher is either going to have Crush or Flight, and they won't be able to block it anyway. And it's that way exhausting the troops is irrelevant compared to just beating them in the face with your flyers.
There's going to be plenty of flyers out there, though, you know? I mean, I don't know. The other problem, so here's another problem looking at the deck. Sapphire Aura is a great trick, like maybe in response if your guy's about to die, but you wouldn't play this during combat because if your troop's not flying, and he gets blocked during blockers, you could play it during attackers because your guy would gain flying and then it would go to blockers and then he wouldn't be able to get blocked, but you can't play it during blockers.
I would sideboard it because the only reason I would play it is if my opponent's playing flying, and then I could, in response to their declaring attacks, bounce something into the air and block their guy where they thought their guy was attacking with impunity, but I wouldn't play it main deck. Not when we're playing Feather Drifting Downriver as our champion anyway. It definitely seems like a sideboard card against other super heavy flyer decks.
So what's our 4-point card? I'm looking to try to find it.
Did we add any wild growths to this deck?
We have one. I'm not sure how many of these to run sometimes, because
I think 1 or 2 is fine because they can shuffle more copies. Every time you play it, it shuffles itself back in. So
right.
you never are at a point where your deck doesn't have a combat trick. So your opponent always has to wonder, does he have a 0-cost wild growth? Or
exactly. So maybe a 2 of on that. I don't know. I went ahead and threw another Brave in. I think it's a little bit more important for us to play that turn 2 3-drop than it is for us to have more wild growth in the deck. But I mean, there's just a lot of different directions you could go. Our curve is okay. It's not great. We do have a lot of ramp to get us into this 5-6 range, so I think we're okay there. We do have some card draw with Sensei, and then we can...
I'd probably move the Squirrel Titan and the Manta to the sideboard and play a couple Mastery of Time.
Yeah.
It just seems like I'd rather be doing stuff that's situationally good, and a lot of the decks right now, Crazed Squirrel Titan could kill something, but if they have like Marble flipped, it can't even target anything. And
right. Yeah, by the time you're playing Squirrel Titan, yeah, Marble's probably flipped. I agree. So yeah, we could probably play Mastery of Time. Let's see here. Mastery. The worst thing that could happen with Mastery of Time is it could just cantrip you a card. That's the worst thing that could happen with
at worst is still good.
Yeah.
At worst, it's still good because it doesn't cost you anything because you just take another turn afterwards.
I really feel like we can go down to 23.
At best, it deals damage. It ramps you. Like that's what it does at best. Is it draws you a card, you get to play another resource.
Let's see. What's her? The charge power only needs 1 Sapphire, so it's not horrible. Because we are running less Sapphire, and we don't really have a way of getting Sapphire into play, but we've got the 9 Sapphire plus another 4 Shards of Fate, so that's 13 shots at it out of 60. Plus we do have some card drawing in here, so it shouldn't be too hard for us to reach threshold to get our champion power online. And we've also got Chlorophyllia and other stuff that can get us there. So I guess this is probably the deck. It's kind of tempo-y, it's interesting. I thought I got rid of you, Squirrel Titan. I thought I pulled you. Okay, well now I'm back down. Now I need another card.
Get up an Oracle Song or something.
Yeah, probably Oracle Song. Yeah, just to get more card draw. Make sure we have more gas in the deck. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good deck. He's going to have to add some rares to his deck if this player were to look at building this deck. The Menacing Gralks, I'm not sure how much this stuff is going for. I guess these are probably what, $3 somewhere around there, probably hovering around $3 or $4 for Gralk. He's kind of an important piece for a lot of.
He is kind of an important piece, but I don't think he's that expensive. Let me check.
Yeah, because he's between like a 1 and a 3 of. So maybe a couple of bucks for Gralk. Jadiim, not really that necessary. I'd say Gralk is much more necessary if you're trying to put
Gralk
this
is
deck together.
buyout 180, so it's not super expensive.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Root Dancer's kind of a big deal in this deck.
That one's a bit more expensive.
And then
I think
your Mastery of Time, that is one that if you don't have it, it's not a huge card that you could get along without Mastery of Time.
In the worst case, you could always just play like Stormcall or something if you needed something to replace it with.
Or more Gralk. Or you could, bump up your Howling Braves or something like that. So I think that's the deck for tonight. And that is good because we are right up on time. So we'll just talk about what we talked about because that's what they taught me how to do when I was doing my speech classes. Yeah. So tonight on Deck Building with the Squire, we talked about the 128-player undefeated deck list. We talked about some of the constructed updates and how it is that you'll be able to get some more packs now that you're doing those constructed tournaments. We went over Cory's blog, and I encourage everyone to get out to his Tumblr, I think it's a Tumblr, and check that out. We went over the HexTCGPro series, and I've told you guys, and I do this every time, I told you the guys the exact deck I'm going to play was back on. I ran a whole bunch of stuff with this. I'm going to be running the Replicator's Gambit, Sapphire Wild deck that I've been running for quite a while. Then we went over the the CZE Magic the Gathering lawsuit, and what's updating. We updated you with that. Then we talked about the ball pit controversy and how it is that I hope that there is a ball pit at the Gen Con. I pray for that. I dream about it in my sleep. And of course I had my wonderful guest Armies of Mordor on, and I actually off the top of my head forget exactly which episode, but it will be linked in the comments below, the exact episode, if you guys want to find out more about him and his guild. I believe it's Murder Inc., right? And,
Murder Inc. and Dragonborn.
Right, and Dragonborn. He's in 2 guilds. He's that special. He's got 2 accounts in 2 guilds. This guy's doing a lot of stuff. Make sure to check him out tomorrow. Support all the streamers tomorrow if you aren't playing in the tournament, but I encourage you to get out and play in the tournament if you're able to do that. Until next time, this is Aaron Squire saying God bless you and your families, trying not to rage too much, and Armies of Mordor saying...
Signing off.
All right.